Hello! So I'm here to submit my build for the Mad Alchemist's ladle build contest by Perry the Pig. Uh, so I think when you're going for something like Mad Alchemist ladle, like he kind of said in the video where he introduced the build concept, you want to figure out how to add damage. The wand itself doesn't do much in terms of flat damage, but it does add a bunch more damage per negative ailment. So you get a big multiplier, but you're multiplying a fairly small number until you can figure out how to do something about that. And of course, this being the Rune Master patch, I wanted to play Rune Master. Because what else? It's not like I'm going to pick up any other character. That would be ridiculous. So, I thought of a few different ways to try and do that, but my first thought was trying to use a channeling spell, because the mage has an affix that you can get on the helm and the chest that gives you a fair amount of flat spell damage while channeling. Unfortunately, due to the way most things snapshot, my original ideas for the build didn't work super well. I was just going to place down a glyph and then channel focus or something in order to essentially never die, but the glyph doesn't actually get increased damage from the channeling since it snapshots beforehand. I did attempt to do Fireball. As far as I can tell, Fireball channeled is worse than Fireball not channeled, even before you consider the startup time and mana cost. So that was out. And then Lightning Blast, and that was out. And then I really liked the idea of Focus, because Focus actually scales really well if you take a look at it. Focus scales really well with maximum mana. Unfortunately, Focus takes a full 2 seconds to even start dealing damage to nearby enemies, so that's kind of a non-starter. But the damage was actually pretty good. What I landed on, which has apparently been a build for a very long time now, is channeled Elemental Nova. So let me just go through some maps real quick, and then, or a map, and then I'm gonna try and do an Orobyss here, and I will go through a little bit more of the specifics on the build. Or maybe I'll try and talk about them while I'm doing a map. We'll see. I'm not super coordinated. But one of the problems you often have with triple Elemental Nova, which is what we've got right now, is that it's difficult to get enough penetration, which is one of your huge sources of more damage when you're doing any kind of build that hits. Actually, not even just builds that hit, just builds in general. It's hard to get enough penetration for 3 different elements. Luckily for us, we get a helmet for Elemental Nova specifically, which gives us gives us penetration for every elemental resistance that we have, and the amount of elemental resistance that we have, because we're channeling, can get fairly high in interesting ways. So we have access to Lyeth's Signet, which gives us 75% more elemental resistance. We have access to what you might be seeing on the screen here right now, Glyph of Dominion, which gives us another 75 to all resistances. We have access to all resistances while channeling. We also have access to just a few other things that just come from the skill tree, whatever. But every time you get 75 resistance to all elements, which we probably have fairly naturally, just from the build, we get another 75 while channeling from Lyeth's Signet, and then we get another 75 from Glyph of Dominion. Each one of those is worth essentially 20, maybe 21 penetration, along with the 40 that we're picking up in the skill tree, and we've got a total of, what is that, 100 penetration, which is pretty good. That's if we aren't trying to really push past that kind of 75 as a default state. And that's if we only use one Leath Signet. Luckily for us, the Signet is fairly low level for legendary potential. And the item isn't very rare, but it is rare. It's only level 30 for legendary potential, so it's not unreasonable to be able to get some decent LP on those. And then they are pretty good in addition to getting that elemental resistance. Without it, really all we're using it for is that essentially 20 flat penetration. But 20 penetration is pretty good for an item. That's at 100 penetration where we are, taking this off of our build drops us about 10% more damage. So it's like a 10% more damage multiplier. In addition, our Glyph of Dominion here gives us ward per second based on our total elemental resistances. So you can see if I put down the glyph again here and I start channeling, preferably inside the glyph, my bad. But if we start channeling inside the glyph, we're going to start getting resistances higher, and we're going to get more ward per second. So it also helps us a little bit with our survival. Let's get out of here. Let's go do a boss. We'll see how this goes. I'm not super coordinated here, but we do have a fair amount of survival going for us, so hopefully the fact that I'm really quite bad at this doesn't completely kill the demo. But it could. It's definitely a possibility. You can see here that I do not have the node invocation that locks me into a specific set. Immutable order, I think it's called. Unfortunately, with this specific build, you can't use that, just because we don't have two sources of a cold rune when we're using immutable order. Unfortunately, Elemental Nova cannot count as a ice rune for the purposes of immutable order, unless you already have a few other runes. It defaults to lightning and then fire. So instead, and I'll show you in the tree once we have it open. Instead, we've got, oh gosh, we've taken the lightning out of it so that every time we're channeling, we're just building up runes over our head. It's always fire, ice, and then if I'm paying attention, I can, if I've got the wrong setup like I'm gonna have here, I can just tap ward real quick for that ice and then cast it. That does take an extra skill point out of my flame ward that I'd potentially like to have somewhere else, but it's worth it. Anyway, that's kind of the general concept of the build. Elemental Nova is the core of the build. You can see over here we're going up into the channeling node, making channeling a little bit cheaper. The I forgot about the 75% that we're getting here is also giving us another 7% elemental penetration for Lightning Nova due to our helmet, which is nice. It says it disables Lightning Nova. It does not, in fact. It does remove the lightning tag from the skill, though. The helmet keeps it triple elemental, but if you do have any bonuses to lightning skills, you're not going to get it with this tree setup. We go down, grab some penetration here. We take arcane projection so that we don't have to be near enemies. We're grabbing 9 critical chance here where we can. Then we're coming over here. I've been told that each of these 30% is multiplicative with each other. This isn't 30% to someone who has any of these affixes. It's 30% more per affix they have. And if that's the case, this is kind of absurd. If it's not, we might move these points somewhere else, but it's not terrible. We do take 2 points that we don't really care about getting there. But yeah, Elemental Nova, as far as I can tell, is the only channeled skill that the mage can get. that does not deal less damage while channeled than it does while channeled. Unfortunately, as you could see, it does take a lot of mana, however, and you can't recover mana while you're doing it. So we've also spec'd into Focus. Focus is really good at recovering mana. We can also pick it up as a traversal node here. It's got a pretty short cooldown, 2.9 seconds. I don't really have hardly any cooldown on my gear, so that's not too bad. And it kind of helps us feel a little bit better about using Focus. It's not just a mana solver. It is a little more fun. It is a little more interesting. In addition, we get more armor while we're channeling, and 12 armor per intelligence, and we are stacking intelligence, so that's a lot of intelligence. We also have our chilling aura and our shocking aura, which is reducing damage we take from shocked and chilled enemies by quite a lot. So we are very tanky when we're sitting in this Focus. It's really kind of feels like Rebuke does. Probably not quite as good as Rebuke, but it's close. In addition to the node in the passive tree for the new Rune Mage that gives us armor gained as ward after we've channeled for 2 seconds straight, you can see that it's fairly significant. We gained quite a lot of ward there. Our armor is currently at 4,803, or 63% damage reduction while channeling. It goes down to 25% damage reduction when we're not. So, I mean, legitimately getting pretty close to Rebuke numbers there, which is nice. The other skills that we've got are Flame Ward, bog standard Flame Ward, nothing exciting here. Runic Invocation, unfortunately we can't take Immutable Order, but this +8 spell damage is helping with our wand, not giving us very much damage. We're just going over here, taking a chance to double cast our, I don't recall what the invocation is called, but the Ice Fire Ice, just for a larger burst of ward. Might actually be worth not doing that, because I believe it still costs mana when it repeats. So that potentially hurts us a little bit. And then we kind of just come up here for faster rune gain while channeling. It just feels better. It's probably not 100% mandatory, but what else are you going to take in this tree? And then we've got Glyph of Dominion. The big parts of the Glyph of Dominion that we're here for are the ward per second per uncapped resistances, since uncapped elemental resistance gives us penetration. We like a lot of uncapped elemental resistance, might as well get some ward for it. The all resistances of 75% while you're standing on the glyph gives us more penetration. It gives us more ward per second because we're standing on the glyph. We then come up here and we grab spells and attack area increase while on the glyph. So if we plop down a glyph and then we're channeling, then it's 30% more area. That's not bad. I do up here have it so that I can put 2 glyphs on the ground. Unfortunately, it does not give you 150 all res. I wish it did. But it does, I think, give you double the amount of ward per second that it would normally give you, and it's a non-trivial amount of ward per second when it is down. Still, the amount of mana this costs is probably not worth it. It's probably better to just put some more points into the duration for boss fights, specifically when you're standing still for a long time, and then the rest of our points just go into duration. And that's it for the skills. Just pop open the inventory here real quick, and we can see this isn't very high tier gear. You'll see no legendary potential on this ladle, no legendary potential on the Crest of Unity. We're using a set belt because it's got a lot of flat armor and percent armor, and we like armor. It's a great way to scale our build. Because we're channeling, we can't use Twisted Heart to give us insane ward, so scaling armor a little bit, especially with our armor while channeling from our blessings, is very helpful to keep us alive. And then we've got Layout Signet. I've talked about that quite a bit. It's not doing a whole lot for you. You get a little bit ward when you're hit and you're channeling. It gives you increased lightning damage, which probably increases, like, it only counts for maybe a third of that because we're doing 3 different kinds of damage. And now that I'm thinking about it, some of our added damage is cold. But it's pretty good. If you don't have a better one than this, I probably wouldn't use it. If you do get one with some LP on it, I would probably target Intelligence as the primary stat. It'll give you more ward retention. It'll give you more crit chance from our passive tree. It'll give you more cooldowns. Intelligence is just really good for the build. So I'd aim for Intelligence first. You see our gloves here have Intelligence. They've got some Armor Shred. It's good to get some Armor Shred somewhere. I don't believe the spoon has it. Nope, it doesn't have it. And then the boots, I'm mostly taking these for the reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes, and I do like everything else on there, but I was mostly just trying to cap that. We also really like the experimental affixes that can go on gloves. The part of your damage, part of your armor count helps to mitigate damage over time. Part of the boots, the traversal skills give you more ward per missing mana. Because we kind of bungee between max and low mana constantly is really good for us. So if you can get that experimental affix on some boots, by all means, it'd be pretty good. We don't have a whole lot of ward in the build, or mana in the build, but we do like mana in the build. It lets us channel a little bit longer before we have to focus. It mostly just feels better. It's not a must-have, but more mana is always good. Over here, we like our all resistances while channeling. It's kind of hard to get, fairly rare. I do have one, but it's on a pretty terrible base, so I ended up taking this one instead. The other one is, I think, a T6 of that, but I think Exalted Intelligence on a better base is just better for us. Like I said, we do spend a lot of mana, so we do like our mana spent gained as ward when we can get it. And then that's about it. We're really just filling things in. The helmet, we'd like some LP on. If you can get some LP on this, you can get spell damage while channeling on a helmet, so that's the obvious choice. And then probably Intelligence. But yeah, that's the build. Sorry if this has gone on a little bit long, but interested to see what people think about it. And I've enjoyed making it. So see you later.